Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out this evening. We are really excited to celebrate the last episode of season 1 of Foundering, which drops tomorrow. Foundering is our new serialized podcast from Bloomberg Technology. Every season, we will go deep into one controversy within Silicon Valley. Our first season is about WeWork. My name is Shawn Wen. I'm the executive producer of the show. And I'd like to introduce Ellen Huet. Ellen is the host of the first season. She has been reporting on WeWork for 4 years now, and she's seen the company rise and then crash. Hey, Ellen, how's it going?
Hi.
Okay. And we also have 2 special guests with us today. Cody Quinn worked out of WeWork's headquarters in New York City from 2014 to 2016. She was an assistant to 2 different executives at WeWork. Now she lives in Grand Rapids. She works as an executive assistant at a furniture company. Hi, Cody.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on. All right, and lastly, we have Carl Pierre. Carl worked at WeWork from 2013 to 2016. He led the community team in DC, which means he saw their buildings in the city. He's still in DC and now runs his own design agency. Hi, Carl. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys.
Tonight, it's going to be a pretty short event. We'll listen for about 10 minutes to the last episode, and then Ellen, Cody, Carl, and I will have a short conversation. And you can ask us questions too. Please tweet your questions to @podcasts or put them here in the chat. But first, we're going to play a clip. Ellen, do you mind setting it up for us?
Yeah, so we'll be playing a short clip from the final episode, episode 7. And the clip we're about to play starts off pretty close to present day. WeWork's IPO has collapsed. Adam Neumann is out, and he's got a really nice exit package. At one point, it was worth $1.7 billion. And his employees are pissed because they're seeing their own shares plummet in value. And thousands of their coworkers are getting laid off.
Great, thank you. Let's play the clip. You can watch us listen for about 10 minutes.
So, just when you thought he was out, Adam Neumann came roaring back in. And he's locked in another battle with Masa, this time about getting his $1 billion. It's like Alien versus Predator, the sequel. But WeWork's employees were out of luck. They just sat back and watched the stock plummet in value. Here's Carl Pierre, who used to run the community team for WeWork in DC.
The sad part is where a lot of people at WeWork who were holding on to a lot of options, thinking they were going to become homeowners when the company went public, who were getting ready to buy cars, getting ready to possibly even retire, start their own company. And all those dreams were dashed in the course of a couple of weeks, Bummer.
Carl says he even watched colleagues turn down other offers because they thought they might get rich from WeWork.
I have 2 guys I know. I do know they got job offers from other places, and I talked to them about it, and they refused both offers. And they were like, no, we're going to stick with this. It's going to be worth so much money, man. It's don't you know you're going to be a millionaire?
I've heard stories of other employees making similar miscalculations. One former employee told me they bought a house thinking they'd be able to pay it off by selling their shares. Another said they took out a loan right before the IPO so they could buy their stock early and save on taxes down the road. But once the IPO was canceled, they were stuck with a 6-figure tax bill. These employees felt financially screwed, but their disappointment went beyond that. They were hurt. I asked Dave Fano, who's a former WeWork executive. He said that the promise of equity made employees feel like owners, but they didn't have the same rights as actual investors.
Equity continues to be used as a mechanism to create a sense of ownership. And I kind of use ownership in air quotes. It's emotional. It's not practical. They don't have the information rights that investors do. They don't really know the profitability. They don't really know the cash burn of the company.
Dave said employees were also blinded by famous stories of some early startup employees who got rich from their stock.
Because they're just thinking about, those successful stories that they hear of those early employees getting a ton of, some big liquidity event and life-changing amounts of money. And that's not to say those aren't true, but I think it's important to state that those are the minority. in terms of the total number of people that have gotten equity relative to those that have had real paydays.
Dave says he understands that some employees feel tricked, almost betrayed by their own employer.
That's tough for people to navigate. They're probably remorseful. They're angry. They wish they would have had more information.
And this feeling of betrayal was compounded by WeWork's inspiring mission, which Dave says the company used to get employees bought in.
I think it went a really long way. You'd often hear things like, it's a really great mission. It's a mission I can be a part of. Why are you here? I really believe in the mission.
That mission really meant something to WeWork's employees. Here's Cody Quinn, a former executive assistant.
They made people feel like they were like, you're part of this huge thing that's going to change lives. And they were really good at sending that message so people really believed it. I mean, really believed it, like dancing and fist pumping during an orientation. Like they really got people to believe in what they were saying. Adam was like just a big lie, and I can't imagine how those people are feeling.
Former employees were mad because they felt lied to by WeWork's messaging. We over me, better together, authenticity. Especially after they learned about the conflicts of interest, the huge payout, Adam leaving the country. In retrospect, Adam's old WeWork slogans felt hollow. Here's Cody again.
If I could ask Adam one question, did you really believe all that bullshit that you told us? Did you ever really believe it? Did you ever really believe that you were changing the world? Did you ever really believe that you were elevating the world's consciousness? Or was it really all for that parachute you ended up with anyway?
Remember, others had told me they thought Adam was manipulative and savvy, that he knew exactly what to say to get people to agree with him, that he was so charming that it was hard to know whether he believed something or not. It was hard for employees like Cody to trust that Adam had been genuine. To her and to others, his actions undercut his words. Here's Andrew again.
WeWork was sort of a dream. It was really exciting to me. And to have that dream dashed was, pretty devastating. And when Adam, after the fact, takes his money and runs off to Israel, it just causes you to question the whole thing. Like, was it ever real? Was this always the plan in the first place? And it just sort of poisons everything that felt positive about this message that we were sold. Was it just a way to get some money out of the world? Like, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. To this day, I suspect it's probably somewhere in between. I think that, he's both an idealist and a realist and, really believed it at the beginning and also took some pretty selfish, evasive action when he saw the writing on the wall.
There was something about Adam, though. A lot of people told me about this. They'd say that he seemed to have so much conviction and enthusiasm and energy for what he was doing. They felt it just couldn't be a sustained artifice.
There's something about Adam's charisma and magnetism. I'm sure you've heard it from everyone you've talked to. Like, there's a reason why he was as successful as he was, and it's because he just radiates this energy and this passion and this excitement about what he's doing. He's a zealot. And so it's hard not to believe that that's genuine.
And recently, I had a conversation with a former WeWork executive who had some great insight into Adam's beliefs. He asked for anonymity, so we had someone else read his words out loud. He felt that Adam knew exactly how to use belief to his advantage as a leader.
So I think he understood that people wanted to believe in those things. I believe that he understood the perceived benefit of those things. I think he very well understood how to deliver a message that people could connect with and believe in. I think ultimately at the end, his actions showed that he didn't really believe in the things he was saying.
Adam believed these ideas in principle, but in practice, sometimes things played out differently.
He very much believed that people should do those things and that people should believe in a we over me and that people should struggle together. Then when it applied to him, I'm not sure he believed that so much. He felt he knew like what was right for people, but didn't ultimately think that those things were right for him. At least not in the actions he took.
To this executive, this is how you reconcile the gap between Adam's words and his actions. This is how Adam could seem genuine when he talked on stage about the value of community, and then turn around and do things that looked really selfish. Summer camp was a glaring example.
When, the whole company has to wake up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and struggle to sign up, to wait in lines to go to summer camp and riding a bus, and he takes a seaplane. And look, you're all like, you woke up at 4:30 or 5 to get on this stupid bus to a summer camp to sleep in a tent for 3 or 2 nights or whatever. And you're just getting off the bus in the Adirondacks and you're kind of like, you're cracked out. You got like one eye open and you see the seaplane just like gloriously land in the lake. And you see these like people doting on him and carrying his suitcases. And you're just like, what the fuck?
This executive saw Adam get special treatment again and again.
The people needed to share hotel rooms to save money, yet he's got like a big Airbnb mansion. We're all told to save money and be frugal and fly coach to China. He takes a private plane. And so there's just this kind of like, well, my time is more important than your time. In general, like his approach to life is the rules don't apply to me.
We'll be right back.
And we're back. So we're really excited to have Carl and Cody here. Both of them talked on the podcast about their crazy experiences working at WeWork during a time when WeWork was still growing super fast. Let's start with you, Cody. After the show came out, what kind of reaction did you get from people who listened? And Cody, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Got it. I mostly heard from earlier employees that I worked closely with. So could be other admins or people that I frequently had to talk to and work on meetings with. And most of the feedback, actually, I would say, I will say this, I've not gotten any negative feedback from anybody. So mostly it's been like, that's very accurate. That's exactly what it was like. That's what we experienced because they were, in the trenches with me at the same time. So, and not all of the people that I got feedback from are former employees. Some of them are still there. So I'm very proud of that I was able to at least talk about it in an honest way, that even people that are still there are able to acknowledge that's exactly what
Carl,
happened.
how about you?
Yeah, so I had a few DMs, LinkedIn messages from random people in the past. Overall, it's been really positive. I'm happy to say that my times at WeWork were at least client facing, and with my employees was always like fun and positive. So it was more so like people wistfully remembering some funny / horrifying memories from the past. But overall, it's been interesting to go down memory lane with a few people who contacted me recently. They're just like, oh yeah, I totally remember that moment where the keg exploded and et cetera, et cetera. So it's been fun reliving some of these painful but memories.
Yeah, if anyone's curious about the keg story, that's I believe the opener of episode 2 is the great beer disaster. Carl, when you worked in DC, you were basically running WeWork's DC buildings, and a lot of people these days ask me whether WeWork is still in business. They've read all these headlines about problems that they've had, and the answer is yes. But I think given your experience, I'm wondering whether you think WeWork is a strong business, and what do you think is going to happen to it in the future?
Sorry, I missed the the first part of that question. The internet here is, I mean, I'm in Alaska right now for anyone watching.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Oh yeah. Do you think WeWork has a strong business model, and what do you think is going to happen to it in the future?
You know what? It did have a strong business model. Commercial real estate was draconic when WeWork first entered. It still rather is in a lot of different ways. But, when you're a small business or a small company, you can't foresee your growth. So it's hard to commit to a 5-10 year lease to anything. So WeWork really tapped into a model that commercial real estate had to pivot to anyway. But now with COVID, it's really difficult to say.
Oh no, Carl, come back.
Work life in the offices. Oh no.
You cut out. It's okay. It's okay.
No. Okay.
Well, did you want to say anything more about WeWork's future? Do you think it'll still be around in a couple of years?
It all depends on WeWork and what it does now. But really dumb leases, if they can kind of start hedging back the really poor leases they've already written or get out of some other leases, I think they could withstand the storm. But it all depends on what they do now, in my opinion. It's going to be tough times for the next 2 to 5 years, but if they really buckle down and really focus on core business, they'll be okay.
I have a question for Carl, actually. So you actually knew about these awful leases that were being signed?
I noticed a pattern in leases, at least, because I remember when I first started, what it was costing a certain cost per square footage, especially with construction and build outs. And then it just got kind of wilder. And I was like, really? We're going to.
I remember being like scratching my head, like, this doesn't make sense. It's like they would manipulate it in a way that made it seem like it was like this. No, this is good. And it's like, it's not really, though.
Yeah, I think WeWork, at least during my heydays at WeWork, it was really at that point where growth mattered no matter what. As long as on paper we looked like we were growing, that's all that mattered. We could have written the worst membership agreement commitments ever. It was like, oh, you get half a year off, and then your next year's 2/3 price. Like some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen in terms of lease agreements were kind of flying all over the place. But it was in that weird time period of like, growth is everything. If we're growing, that means we're okay. And I think that's a mentality of Silicon Valley that it's like, who cares about users or, how to make money or, actual revenue coming in to offset, and you've seen it with a lot of the bigger companies on IPO like Snapchat and Uber. Everyone's like, oh, times are tough for these companies because at no point did they slap themselves in the face and be like, are we growing too fast? What's responsible growth look like? Should we commit to this market? Is it a good time to enter this market instead of this, we're first ones here. That's all that matters. So I don't know. It's tough.
Both of you, we obviously interviewed a lot of former employees of WeWork for the show, but both of you had, I think, pretty colorful and hilarious experiences of your time at WeWork. And I'm wondering if maybe we'll start with Cody. Do you just want to share a couple things? Like when you think back on your time there, what sticks out to you as like an unusual experience?
So I would say this wasn't unusual to me at the time, but in hindsight, when I look at it, I'm like, that is so abnormal. I remember like having to do expenses for someone, and like they had spent probably like $10,000 to $12,000 on a trip to San Francisco and never brought back a single receipt. and I was like, I was getting, because I was I was in charge of this. So like, hey, like we need receipts. You have to do these expenses. And I would ask this person, just like, I don't know, figure it out. I don't have them. This is $12,000 of company expenses, and you're just telling me to figure it out. Like you want me to go to procurement and be like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? I got nothing. Like, that was the weirdest. Like, it was weird at the time, but like now that I work, you know, in a company that like has processes and functions that are long-standing, when I look back, I'm like, that's really bizarre. That's not normal at all. So that's one. And then like another one was like when anytime I would ever have a question to bring, sorry, I got the dog here. Every time I'd ask HR about like, hey, like, is this normal? Or like, could I talk to somebody about something that is making me feel kind of like uncomfortable, or like, can I have a conversation with somebody about something that I think needs attention? I'd be told like, so no, we can't do that for you. We can't talk to you about that. You should just talk to your manager or like whoever it is. And I'm like, well, but like, you're supposed to be the oversight on like problems between like, you know, managers and their reports. And you're telling me that I cannot come to you at all with anything ever? And they were like, yeah, pretty much. Yep. So just, I don't know, figure it out. That was just bizarre. That was a strange, I guess, construct of how employees interacted within a company that was scaling that fast.
Yeah, I think if there's one theme I've heard, it's that in companies, and not just at WeWork, to be fair, but companies that are growing very quickly, like the normal processes just kind of, you know, they get left behind.
Right.
Carl, what about you? Anything?
Sorry. Sorry. I told her she would get in here. Go.
Carl, any particular memories that you like to reminisce about, the funniest or the weirdest ones?
I remember before Adam came into town, I was getting ready to go on this big tour with him and look at all these buildings and meet up with brokers. And I was wearing a really nice 3-piece suit, and I was getting like really had my hair done. I was like really feeling it. And then and I was at one of our locations, at the Wonder Bread Factory location, and a keg broke, and there was nobody there who can fix it. And like, I didn't want angry members or upset members, so I literally just took off my jacket and started fixing it in my nice suit. And I remember just the keg, like, I fixed it, but a lot of buildup of CO2 was in there, so it just kind of spat at me and got beer all over me. And I was just like, ugh. So I went to a store real quick just to change out my shirt, but I still smelled like beer. You can never. I feel like that's one thing at WeWork that I'll never scrub off my skin. Is that old beer smell. But the other crazy part of that story was I remember going to all those meetings later with Adam and some of the team, and we were just meeting with all these developers. And then we would have like the meeting inside the car when the developers weren't there. Whereas like, Carl, what do you think of this building? Blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I was 26 or 27 at the time. And it was just crazy, like putting my input into like what would be like a $10 million deal or like all these huge deals. And I was just like, kind of uncomfortable. I was like, you know, because it was on me to sell the building too. I was like, all right, we'll get this building, but it's on you to make sure it's fully leased up. So we kept this crazy tour. We basically said yes to everything. It was like window shopping with millions of dollars, and it was just as a person in their 20s, it's wildly uncomforting just to be like in that position where it's like, all right, we'll do it, but it's on you to make sure it doesn't fail. So it's like, cool, man. And that being covered in beer, that was a fun day. But that was like every other day at WeWork. Though, it was some other crazy, wild challenge while being covered in beer.
I have one more, if that's okay. I buried a lot of this stuff in my head, but I once had to give Tiffany Trump a tour of a WeWork headquarters in Chelsea. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, just walk her around.
As a customer?
What?
As a customer?
She just knew somebody, like I think her mom knew somebody, and she was finishing school, and I was there. It's like, oh yeah, well, Tiffany's Trump coming in, so you know, just give her a tour really quick. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait, who? What? I'm doing what? And I was like wearing jeans and like tennis shoes. I'm like, I'm okay, all right, cool. She was honestly lovely. She was very nice, but that was really bizarre. So, yeah, like Carl, like you get thrown into like the weirdest stuff that you're like, oh my god, really? Okay, all right, okay. Well, I guess I'll figure it out then.
Celebrity tours were super common, or celebrities dropping in WeWork was actually very, very common. And in DC, we had a few senators and random people like that come through, but it was always like a thing where you try to find security footage to prove it. It's like, look, this person's actually here. Like, there's 50 Cent at that guy's office right there. Yeah, it's always a thing.
We have a question from Periscope from DWadi19911. Do you guys still have friends at WeWork? And would you go back to WeWork as an employee ever?
Friends, yes. Go back. Not anytime soon.
Yeah, I have I think one last friend there. I joined WeWork super early, I guess, for most people, and a lot of my older friends were like part of the OG crew, but when Adam left, a lot of them kind of departed as well. And would I go back? I mean, if they could really prove to me corporate governance is a lot better and they have a real battle plan to weather the storm that's coming up, and they offered me stupid cash, no more stock options, cash only from now on. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing about WeWork too was, I was getting paid crazy low amounts for what I was managing. I was managing like a $35 million P&L, and I was getting paid like $68,000 a year. And you don't really realize how little that is compared to what you should be getting when you're, 25. You're just like, cool, startups, beer, fun people. And that's all that goes through your head. But when you settle in and start doing the work and you start crunching the numbers, it really is kind of terrifying how much you're managing in terms of like how big of a property it is. But yeah.
We have another question from Twitter from Port. What do you guys think the future holds for all those WeWork offices that are sitting empty right now?
I honestly think WeWork is too big to fail. I mean, I know my friends always think I'm crazy, but I mean, think about it. If WeWork went under, belly up right now, they are the biggest commercial leaser in New York and London. Like the economy there would tank, like literally tank, if WeWork just all of a sudden ran out of money. They've spread themselves like crazy over so many properties across the globe and have gobbled up so much real estate. It won't magically. I mean, it'll continue to bleed for a while, but I don't see it magically just going away overnight. And landlords won't allow it to happen. It's almost like being bailed out. Like it's for all the banks that got bailed out during the last time the economy crashed. It's kind of like that. It's like these landlords can't afford to have WeWork go under, so they'll figure something out.
I agree with Carl on that. I think there has been enough money invested at this point that, and it's also been invested by entities that like they could lose some for a little while. It's like it's not like their portfolio is entirely in the red. These aren't like small investors or small lenders. I think that they will back up their investments. I'm very interested to see how they augment things going forward because of COVID, since you can't just pack people into small office spaces anymore. So I'm very interested to see that. I'm still I still work in the industry-ish. I work for a furniture company, but we also do spaces. We design spaces too. So so there's a lot of things up in the air for the industry in general. But I agree with Carl. I don't think people are going to abandon on their investment, but it's definitely going to have to get a big facelift and a redirection once we know more. I don't know, maybe like at the start of the new year, once we know more about vaccines and things like that. But I think it'll be fine. It just might not look the same. I mean, I doubt it will look the same. And it seems like they've got a lot of experienced people at the helm, so I think they'll be okay.
Shawn, you want to do another question or should I?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay, let's talk about summer camp. So this is what, like, one of the things that I think about with WeWork is that, you know, a lot of the things you can say about WeWork, you know, that they were kind of disorganized or they grew super fast. It's true of a lot of companies in Silicon Valley, except I really think summer camp is kind of a unique thing that WeWork does. Like, there are other companies do offsites and stuff, but never something, you know, quite as flashy. And we're talking like, you know, thousands of people going to these large outdoor 3-day parties with music acts and this kind of thing. So just because I think it's a unique thing about WeWork, can you guys talk? Maybe we'll start with Cody. Can you just explain, like, what is summer camp and like, how do you explain it to people who have never been?
So I went to one summer camp. I know Carl went to several. So I will just talk about the one that I went to, which is the one I think we both referenced in an episode or two that it was the one where the weekend came and I like lost my mind. I was so excited. Sorry, this is the dog. Sorry. So you get on a bus literally at like 4 or 5 in the morning and you ride all the way up to the, I think, Adirondacks or like some, you know, whatever that campsite was. And I had a great time. I was able to invite my younger sister to join me. She was in college at the time, and she was able to come and like we had a great time. Like, we really did. That specific year during the day, they did try to like plan like team building events, but people were so hungover in the morning that nobody wanted to partake. So they just ended up playing like dodgeball and like stuff like that. But you know, it was a good time. Like I can't say anything negative about my experience there. But it was the first day, excuse me, is like employees, and then it's like that's when the members come. And I think like when it's employees, I feel like that was more fun when the members showed up. Not to speak poorly of them, but it's just like it's such a I don't know, like you get to like relax with the people that you grind with like all day long and that you work so hard with, and yeah, the experience was great. I can't really say anything negative about it.
What did you guys think of the clip that we played where an anonymous executive talked about Adam Neumann landing on a seaplane in a lake in the middle of summer camp?
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how he rolled, man. I've that's the thing, is like people make it sound like it's maybe it's because I'm so numb to that kind of behavior. But I remember when he was first visiting DC, he blew his nose into a handkerchief and just handed it to an assistant. Like, this dude is just like,
yeah,
it really is like a demagogue status. Like when he rolls in, it's like everyone freaks out. Everyone's like, Adam's coming. It's like, you know, it reminded me a lot of like The Devil Wears Prada. You know, that everyone's just like freaking out, making sure everything's perfect when he comes there, because he just come in like a tornado. And it's not as negative as, you know, Meryl Streep was in that movie, but it was really that kind of gravitas where it's like, you know, everyone's like, you know, kind of pooping a brick, like, you know, making sure everything is perfect, because he'll see something that he doesn't like, and that will like fall through so many layers of stuff where when it finally lands on you, it'll be like an avalanche. Yeah. So he'll be like, I don't like the way this is, or why are these offices empty? And then he'll tell his assistant, and that person will tell your boss, and you'll just get the, you know, the butt chewing of a lifetime. Like, why are these offices empty? But, you know, that's why it's just so like his slight dislike or his slight movement one direction avalanches whatever direction it goes. So everything has to be as perfect as possible.
But I will say though, I think Adam was somebody that was very hard to gauge. Like what is perfect? What is he in the mood for today? What does he want to see today? Because like when we first moved into the new headquarters in Chelsea, my boss put me in a small little office, and like he saw me in there and like flipped out. But I'm like, well, why is he mad at me? Like, it's not like I like took this office myself. I was told to sit in here. So I feel like it was very hard to gauge sometimes with him. Like, what was he in the mood for? What did he want to see that day? And like what wave was he riding that day for whatever vision he had like last night in his dream? Like it was very hard to say. Like he was not always consistent with things, so it was hard to follow exactly what he wanted all the time. There were certain things, but like sometimes it was just like off the wall. He would just be pissed about things, and you're like, okay.
So we have a question from Xavier from YouTube. Do you guys think that WeWork is going to go ahead and try to take advantage of the unfortunate looming housing and eviction crisis in the US by nabbing up properties for peanuts?
I really hope not, but
I mean, with what money? I mean, it's another thing too. It's like, yeah, you know, there's still a lot of contrary to what anyone says, there's still a lot of capital out there in the world to be used, and people are trying to find places to park it. I doubt WeWork will be getting huge investments in the future, but it's not like they have anything left in the coffers to spend willy nilly. I mean, they've told multiple landlords, we're not going to pay you, you know, until we restructure this somehow. You know, we can't pay our rent unless. So I don't see a company like that putting a single dime or penny, especially since their whole entire shtick now is better corporate governance and better leadership, and gobbling up real estate, even though it's cheap right now, would be a very poor move, I would say, on their part. Right now, I would say it's a better time to renegotiate current leases with landlords, try to position yourself where you'll survive this. Because right now, the world should really be focusing on survival, not trying to get the lead or take the advantage. Even though that's
to do things they should do.
Yeah. No, but I mean, for a company that's on the ropes, as embattled as WeWork is, especially with the failure of the IPO, their valuation getting cut to shreds, and really being at this point at the whim of SoftBank. I'm sure SoftBank's and investors and shareholders are like, we want to see real moves that will produce real money and will cover our costs and make our investment worth it.
That's true. I am coming from a place of like,
but yeah,
when we were there, I'm thinking about it. Which is, I mean, it's not unfair, but it's just maybe not currently accurate. But you know, I was about to say, like, I don't know how much like involvement does Jared Kushner have now? You know, probably none, because he's got a new job now. But you know, there are new people at the helm, but I hope that business practices, if you will, have changed enough where they wouldn't prey on like vulnerable markets in that way. But I don't know. That's how it started, so I don't know.
Well, Sam Weiss from Facebook is asking, or on Facebook, not from Facebook, is asking, people claim that Adam Neumann would light up a joint and take tequila shots in meetings. Is this true?
Shots, yes. I never saw him light up a joint, though.
No, I mean, and really, people like to harp on the drug culture. That's more so like really behind closed doors. They weren't like, you know, these guys weren't like bumping rails in front of like, right. You know what I mean? Like during like meetings and stuff like that. No, I mean, you could definitely smell weed sometimes if we're at summer camp, but you couldn't tell if that was an employee, a member, or your boss, really, because it was just like one big party. Wow. But tequila shots, yeah, like crazy.
Yeah, tequila shots.
After every, like that. Yeah, it's like, hey, we like, for every occasion you could possibly drink, there was a drink in your hand. Like, even after they fired a ton of people, tequila shots. Like there was a huge culling of staff, and it's like even after then, it's like, yeah.
John, you want me to ask one, or okay? I feel like it has been a few years since both of you worked there, and it was, as you mentioned, kind of an experience where you were thrown into situations that you may not have felt prepared for. I'm wondering, when you reflect on it, what do you feel like you learned from working at WeWork, or what are lessons that you take with you today in your jobs that you got from there? Maybe we'll do Cody first.
WeWork was 100%.
Go ahead, Carl. Carl, you
Oh,
first.
sorry. No, Cody, if you want to go. For me, I'll make mine short. WeWork was a trial by fire, and I'll never complain about the experience, because I don't think I would have ever gotten a more compressed version of business practices, understanding commercial real estate. I will always be grateful. Who would give this kind of opportunity to a 24, 25-year-old to run millions of dollars of real estate P&L, ensuring it's all full? I'm happy that me and my staff rose to the challenge and we were able to do our jobs really well. But man, there were days where I was sitting in a supply closet in a suit, oh my God, we were given our new sales goals and there was some crazy number, and I was like, or we just signed on a new building. I was like, oh yeah, Carl, that building's got 1,500 desks. You can fill that up, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure. It was WeWork was fake it till you make it, and pray to God that you can really be as good as you say you are to kind of bridge that gap. And luckily, and I will say this about WeWork recruited some of the best people I've ever worked with my entire life. I think that is the only thing I really miss about the company is the staff. Some of the most brilliant, gifted, just, incredible top talent. It's a shame the burnout was so bad at the company, because the company would be a force to be reckoned with if it kept people. Even though it was really a puppy mill of millennials, it was some of the coolest people I've ever worked with in my entire life. And there are still Facebook groups dedicated to these people who used to work together. They're like Facebook alumni, there's WeWork alumni Facebook groups. Just, it's and that just shows the power of how incredible of talent and people WeWork attracted. So that is probably my greatest takeaway. Sorry, Cody.
No, I would echo pretty much everything that you said. I met some of the most amazing, talented, hardworking people I've ever met in my whole life. And I also will say that in the earlier days, I couldn't tell you now, but in the earlier days, they gave very ambitious, green, but ambitious, smart people opportunities to prove themselves. And we did. We really got things, well, as they like to say, got shit done. And I remember something that you said, Carl, about foot soldiers and generals, and that's not only true just for community. That was true for even people at headquarters that didn't work for community. It's you send a G chat to your pal, and you're like, I'm gonna cry. Can you meet me in the bathroom? And and they're there for you because they asked you to meet them last week. Some of the most amazing people I've ever worked with, I met through WeWork. I will say that I don't think that it was by accident that they hired people that were young and strong-willed and smart and I don't know what the right word is, but we would run into obstacles and we would find our ways around it every single time, every single day, multiple times a day. We were very resourceful and we leaned on each other. So I don't want to give the old executives credit for that, because we built that ourselves amongst each other. They didn't build that. They hired us, but we built networks amongst ourselves. So I don't want to give them credit for that. That was us. We did that. We built that. And I hope going forward that, that internal culture lives on, because it's not an easy company to work for. It's a lot of work, and I hope things get better. But all I can say for anybody that's still working there is like lean on each other, because you need each other, and you were hired for a reason, and that's because you work your ass off. So, you know, just ask each other for help, because everybody will step up and help you.
We have another listener question. This is from Jacob on Facebook. He's asking, if either of you guys went to We Grow schools, would you have vibed more with WeWork? We Grow is the elementary school started by Rebecca Neumann, where she got the plan from a dream, and they sent kids to a farm. Ellen, am I right?
Yeah, for those who haven't listened, we talk about We Grow in, I think, episode 5. It's a private elementary school that Rebecca Neumann started. And yeah, we did interview someone who said that Adam had said in a meeting that he and Rebecca had woken up one morning and she'd said, I had a dream that WeWork had a school. And he was like, great, we'll build a school. And so they built a school and they sent their own children there. But it was quite flexible in its approach to education, I think would be a nice way to put it.
No, I wouldn't change anything for me, because that school was only open for a few years? No, I wouldn't even remember it. So no, I wouldn't change anything for me. Sorry, that means to like laugh at the question, but it don't know anything about the school. It seemed kind of strange, and it wasn't open for long enough to really have like a huge imprint. So.
Anything that was really outside of the core DNA of WeWork tended to not get enough. It's almost like a part of a plant that just didn't get enough water. They kind of gave you directives on what to do, but you're kind of left to the side. And that is true of most of the properties that WeWork did outside of their co-working. So Rise by We, I did not hear great things from the guys there. We Live, I opened one in Crystal City in Virginia. And even that was like, I thought it was going to be the start of so many other We Live properties, but it just kind of stopped, and they didn't give much support, much guidance, and it just kind of wilted on the branch, and there were only 2 properties. I remember at one meeting, he was like, we're going to have like 60 of these in the next 2 years, and to this day, there are only 2. Actually, I'm not even sure if the New York one still exists.
I believe they're technically still open, but there's no, this is my conjecture, but I don't believe there's much of a future for We Live, unfortunately.
No, I mean, it was a cool concept when it was pitched, but I don't think people understand how complicated residential real estate is. Yeah. And also biting off more than you can chew. There's so many laws and approvals you have to get. I mean, there's a reason why residential towers take years of development. And Adam had such a, YOLO attitude when it came to like building stuff. He was kind of like, whatever, dude, let's go do it. And
just do it, and then we'll just answer for it later. But it's like with residential stuff, it doesn't quite work like that. You can't just like, we'll apply for like a license for the beer taps later. Like, no, residential is a bit different. And so I think it created a lot of speed bumps that were maybe not quite anticipated or not thought through as they should have been. Even though they had a million consultants that told them, hey, don't do this and don't do that and wait for this and wait for that. They were like, no, we're just going to do it.
So when we were doing our reporting for the series, a lot of people were looking at the WeWork IPO flame out, not just as a end of a chapter for the company, but as an end of a chapter of an entire era of the 2010s for the tech industry. I'm curious about like how the two of you, whether you two agree that WeWork's IPO marks the end of an era, and how you think back on that era.
The IPO. That's so, I don't know, it's so distant, I think, for earlier employees that left before that whole debacle. I think it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. It's not like I didn't work long enough to like have like this huge amount of shares where I like thought I was just gonna be rich one day, but I thought maybe, okay, well, it might end up being like a nest egg or something, it's not. So I'm not really like that butthurt about like not making a ton of money off of it. But I know there are a lot of people that I spoke to personally that had really they had very big expectations and they really banked on it. And I think that there are a lot of people that are probably hurting quite a bit right now. I'm happy that I got out when I did, and that I just sort of said, okay, well, maybe it's worth something, maybe it's not, but I'm just gonna cut my losses right now and move on. So I'm not really maybe like the best person to ask, but I do think that there are a lot of people that are probably struggling right now because of that expectation.
Carl, how about you?
I think as long as humans are capable of experiencing excitement, and as long as humans have stupid amounts of cash they don't know what to do with, there will always be hype around tech, going into the new next thing. It feels like even in my lifetime, I'm like 32, I've lived through like 3 bubbles already, like 3 phases, moons of tech. This isn't the end of IPOs, big ones either. I think people will scrutinize a bit more, will change their behaviors to how they evaluate what is a successful tech company. I think the bro culture of like big money and big spending might tone down. There might be a more mature age of more interesting tech that won't be as sexy, won't always be like, consumer-based stuff or, the next Snapchat. But, I don't think this bodes necessarily the end of IPOs. I think it bodes the end of dumb IPOs, I hope, of companies that people put stupid amounts of money on betting. I hope this is the signal of better corporate governance, for better leadership. I hope a lot of CEOs look at these as cautionary tales. And also, ultimately, for me, it's just growth. Just like grow responsibly. It's not bad to have an appetite to want to rule the world and take over everything. But I mean, the numbers have to make sense, and you can't just. The Silicon Valley thing that has to end is let's do it first and figure out how to make money after. If you don't have that back part, I mean, it's just you'll never hit your milestones. But I say all this as investors continue to still pour money into companies like this. So I don't know. If I had $500 million and was feeling itchy and just wanted to not spend it on Vegas and spend it on a tech company, yeah, sure, I'll probably pick something crazy and wild and be like, oh, these guys, But as long as as long as humans have stupid amounts of money, and as long as people can get really excited over stuff, there'll always be big money in tech, and there'll always be big losers in tech too. Whether it's
I agree with you. I don't think it's really going to change the fact that money's going to be dumped into places where maybe it shouldn't, but I think the pitch is going to change. The pitch that these companies are going to change. I don't know, like maybe not be so bombastic about numbers. They will probably flaunt more like inclusivity in their workforce and probably try to inflate certain things about like their impact on communities and environment. I don't think the money's going to still be there. It's just going to, the language will just change a little bit.
Okay, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Our last episode of Foundering Season 1 drops tomorrow morning. Please subscribe and listen to the show. We loved making it, and we hope that you'll stay subscribed for Season 2. And thanks to Carl and Cody for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, you guys.